And we are back. We were busy here in Kansas City over this past weekend with hosting one of the most exciting events that the NFL puts on each year. And we've been building up for it for a while, and we'll talk through that here in a minute. But it was an exciting weekend here in Kansas City. Welcome back, everyone. There's always next year. It's gonna be May. It is May.
It's May Day, May 1st.
Sorry, everybody. I couldn't help myself on that one.
He's trying to be Justin Timberlake over here.
My dance moves are just a little bit shy there. But we've seen a number of headlines this week, and one that Mikey brought to the table when we were talking through topics was there's a new 15-year-old phenom.
15-year-old phenom, yeah. Melanie Barcenas out of San Diego, California. She is the now youngest player in history to play in a NWSL game, a National Women's Soccer League game. And that got me kind of thinking a little bit, like, what other sports have young players that have come in and made an impact for their team at that young? And I didn't even think, like, you're still in high school. You're still under, like, your
absolutely. You're in maybe your sophomore year.
Right. So, like, I didn't even realize that was possible, that you could just go, like, quit high school and go do a professional sport like NWSL. But she did it, and she made her debut this past week.
It's interesting because, to your point, you think about sports that, you know, the age that people are typically entering the pros, the bigs, whatever you want to call it, with professional sports here in America. And one thing that I think of is, I remember years ago when we were kids, Freddie Adu of DC United.
He was one on my list that I was going to bring up here later.
That's one that I think of just right off the top of my head.
He was 14 years old.
He was, okay, I was going to say, I want to say he was around 15 too.
Yeah. So soccer's a little bit of a different sport.
Soccer's different. I know the hockey kids sometimes get in. I'd say hockey, as far as like professional sports leagues we watch, hockey's probably the one that I would think of next. Okay. As far as you see maybe some 19 and 20-year-olds getting in there.
Baseball, you could possibly get a 19, 20-year-old if they're really good.
But the likelihood of them immediately being at the major league level is slim.
It is.
They'll probably play at least 1 year of rookie ball, regardless of talent, especially if they're that young, just to get them acclimated to not living with mom and dad.
And it also depends on who's ahead of you on the depth chart. Like Bobby Witt Jr. came in. I think he was 20 years old when he made his major league debut.
Say Singer and him got moved up pretty quick.
Yep.
Quicker than I feel like most of those young guys do.
And that's typical for baseball. 20, 21, sometimes up to 25 years old, you're not making your major league debut. But Joe Nuxhall, 1944, made his Major League Baseball debut at the age of 15.
No shit.
1944. It was a different game back then.
Definitely a different game. That was just 4 years before the Cleveland Indians won their last World Series title.
Oh, man.
But
sucks for Cleveland.
You ain't lying, brother. But we forge onward as a Cleveland fan base. Believeland. There's a reason we're called that.
You guys aren't doing too bad this year. You're right behind the Twins, I feel like.
And we're about 500. We haven't had a great week and a half, but It's early in the season. I'm not concerned yet.
Yeah.
But no, with football, with basketball, you expect them to go through at least a couple of years of college minimum before they're declaring. So you're going to see them at least probably be 21 most of the time before they're getting to that pro level. And in some cases, you get guys like Brandon Whedon, who are like most of 30.
No kidding.
And still NFL rookies. So you get it across the board, but very exciting to see somebody so youthful getting an opportunity on the big stage and in a league that has really blossomed over the past few years and is really establishing themselves in the USA soccer community.
They sure are. So big congrats to Melanie. Way to go. You're obviously going to be an amazing player. Keep up the good work and show everyone what's up.
And now we will dig into the NFL draft festivities here in Kansas City this weekend. I gotta give the hometown shout out. Kansas City did a great job. All the festivities surrounding the event. You had a lot of them were surrounding Travis Kelce in one form or another, from the New Heights podcast that they did at the Music Hall, which had a number of guests, one of which I'm going to touch on here later. You had the Kelce Jam going on. The one thing I thought was unique is it was nowhere near downtown. They had it going on way out in Bonner Springs, but nevertheless, you had MGK, Rick Ross, Tech-9, Loud Luxury, number of artists there, and I think that was entirely sold out. And I think for the most part, the weather held off. That was the kind of skeptical night, was Friday night as far as precipitation, but I think everybody did okay with that. Night one of the draft was gorgeous. I was down there at Union Station to see about the first 13 picks with some family and friends. It was cool. I was very impressed. It was fun seeing our hometown all dolled up for
being able to put on an event,
for
like
lack
that.
of a better term. Yeah, absolutely. Putting on something that drew people from all over the world.
Oh yeah.
But you're seeing fans from all 32 teams there. You're seeing people, those diehards that they put on the face makeup, they put on the wardrobes, they
wear
do it
those
all.
masks.
Hey, you know what? That's the time for them to shine.
And you know what? They don't even know who their team is actually picking, but they are cheering nonetheless. They are getting loud and proud about their team, and they don't even care who they're picking.
That's absolutely right. And getting to be a part of that, getting to experience that firsthand was very surreal. It was cool. In Kansas City, you never know what weather you're going to get in late April. You could get snow, you could get rain, you could get 85 or 90 degrees and heat.
It ended up being practically perfect. Besides that Friday night, there's a little bit of rain going on.
And I think it was just a little bit of misting. I don't think it was bad. I know Saturday, as it closed out, it was gorgeous. Thursday was great. Kudos to Kansas City. Great event. There was a number of live music acts that we talked about last week. We don't need to dig into that again. But there were some great storylines. A couple of them surrounding local talent in one way or another. But I'll let you kick things. You're our K-State guy and our Chiefs guy, as is Matt. But obviously, with the Chiefs making that 31st pick, give us the emotion. Give us how you're feeling.
That's the main one I want to talk about, and mainly because Felix and Anduijke-Uzomah has been a big star for K-State, big defensive end rusher for K-State the past couple of years, and he's only 21 years old. He goes into the draft. He gets drafted by his hometown team. He grew up in Blue Springs, Missouri, which is a suburb of the Kansas City area, and he grew up rooting for the Chiefs. So I can't even imagine the feelings that were going through that guy when he got that call from Brett Veach and Andy Reid, and he hears them say, hey, we're drafting you with this first overall pick, this 31st overall pick in the first round. And I mean, he just had to be on one at that point in time.
It was kind of cool. I actually had a couple of friends that I didn't realize were close with Felix.
Okay.
They were at the house.
Did they go to college with him or something? Or?
I don't even know what the connection is. I saw it. It's a couple friends that are together. They're dating one another. And I don't know if it's him or her that know him. Okay. But they were in the house. They were there for the draft party with him and his family out there in Blue Springs or Lee Summit. And she posted a handful of videos and pictures from the house party. And it was just very cool to see, that firsthand account of, somebody who was there and being able to celebrate the hometown kid. That's a call that every kid that plays growing up dreams of.
Exactly. And
first round, reigning champs.
In drafts in Kansas City, where you grew up at. That's crazy. But I'm excited for this pick for more than just those reasons. Felix is a great pick for us. We lost Frank Clark at the end of the year. We're looking for a new edge rusher. We're looking for a new guy who can get after the quarterback, make some things happen on defense. And let me just read you what he did the past couple of years. So his sophomore year, 2021, 11 sacks, 50 total tackles, 6 forced fumbles. I think he led the Big 12 in sacks that year. 2022, 8.5 sacks, 46 total tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. So Kansas City is getting a really good edge rusher who has not even hit his ceiling yet. He is going to grow some more.
Sure.
He's going to get in that NFL weight room, get in that NFL program. He's going to put on a little bit more weight, and I think he's going to be a real force to reckon with come the next probably 5-ish years while he's on this rookie deal.
Well, again, it's always exciting to see a hometown kid get drafted. The fans are excited. He definitely impressed many during this last year at K-State.
Right.
Excuse me, with all the success they had as a team. So looking forward to seeing what he does here in Kansas City. And one other talking point as far as that K-State team is we see maybe, you said that was probably your favorite talking point. Me not being a K-State homer, I still love the storyline of Deuce Vaughn's dad calling him up and saying, hey, why don't you come to work with me next week? I had no idea that his dad even worked for the Cowboys.
Me neither, honestly.
But from how he delivered it, it sounded like he called from another phone, so he didn't know his dad was
like,
calling.
Hey, my phone's not working. I had to call from this other number.
Yeah. Very cool moment. Jerry Jones hops on and welcomes him to the team and greets him. That was a special moment. It's tough to get real teary-eyed about something with regard towards the Cowboys because we're just trained to hate them. But that was a very cool storyline and certainly something that I enjoyed watching.
And yeah, so my take on that is I'm devastated that Deuce Vaugn went to the Cowboys. I think putting him with the Chiefs, putting him with Andy Reid could have drawn up some plays for him. Andy Reid could have made some big things happen with the little guy Deuce Vaugn, but he ends up going to the Cowboys, and that is a great storyline. I love seeing his dad being able to call him and do that. And the other thing is Jerry Jones was a very class act to let his dad make that phone call for him. I have never liked Jerry Jones. I've never been a Jerry Jones guy at all. And that made me just...
He is not this week's Dick of the Week, is what Mike's trying to say.
He made me actually kind of like him a little bit more at that point in time because he told Deuce how he deserved all of this. He's really excited to get Deuce on the Cowboys team and see what he can do. And thank you, Jerry Jones. Huh?
Say Deuce again.
Deuce.
No, it was a cool moment. I'm not sure I'm going to go so far as to say I like Jerry Jones more, but it was certainly a cool moment.
Yeah.
We saw the Texans trade up. I can't remember if it's ever happened that a team had 2 of the top 3 overall picks in a draft.
Right.
Pretty wild there. They got their quarterback. They moved on and decided to grab that number 3 pick as well.
They got the best defensive player in the league in Will Anderson. So, they had a great draft, in my opinion. I think Texans
on paper, before we see anything, they had a great draft.
If they can put some stuff together and they can get out of their front office just screwing everything up, I think in the next 5 years Houston could come back and be a force to be reckoned with as well.
The running back that we highlighted last week, Bijan Robinson.
Yep, he gets taken 8th overall,
going to the ATL.
Yep. I don't know. He's a generational talent. I get that. Still don't know how I feel about picking a running back in the first round.
I know I talked to my buddy who's an Eagles fan, and the Eagles at the time had the 10th pick. They wound up trading to get the 9th pick and picking up Jalen Carter from Georgia.
Yes.
And I think you maybe wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
he was saying that he wanted them to get Bijan at 10 if he was still on the board. But he was very psyched since Bijan was gone that they moved up and picked up Jalen Carter.
Yes, 100%. I mean, with the Eagles, it seems like their identity right now is to try and stop Patrick Mahomes. And even though they won't see him till the Super Bowl possibly,
right?
They're trying to put those pieces in place on their defense to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes. They draft 3 guys out of Georgia, and they get another Georgia guy in DeAndre Swift from a trade. I know he's a running back, but basically...
Would you say that the Eagles now...
I think they're the Georgia Bull. You can call them...
They have that dog in them?
They got the dog in them, that's for sure. They're the Georgia Bulldogs, basically, on defense. I think half of their defense is from Georgia. So, which is not a bad pick because Georgia has been like the number 1 defense in the NCAA for the past 2 to 3 years. So, the Eagles are doing it right, in my opinion. They have the offensive pieces put in place. They were able to make a Super Bowl last year, and they just only shore up that defense a little bit with this draft. So we'll see if those guys can come through. Obviously, like you said, we won't be able to really analyze them until after at least this year, maybe even the year after that.
At least 2 to 3 years for sure. But Mike's giving a little bit of credit seemingly to Philadelphia, so that is
I think they had
shockingly non-homerish of you.
I think they had the best draft out of any NFL team. Now, a couple other teams that I think had really good drafts, the Bills and the Bengals, who are another couple of teams that I really don't like.
I am taking Mike to the hospital after we finish recording this.
But
him providing accolades to the Eagles, the Bills, and the Bengals. And, I'm a little disappointed because there was another team that, from what I'm reading and hearing, had a really nice draft as well.
Talking about the Cleveland Browns right now?
I'm talking about the Cleveland Browns.
Okay. This is homerish right here.
This is homerish, but it's only because I'm reading other people saying it. It's not because of any dialogue that I've drawn up in my own head. But the one other topic that I want to talk about with the draft before we pivot, Will Levis. Will Levis, kind of interesting. The chaos last week surrounding the Reddit post about him potentially going number 1 and him telling friends and family, Carolina tells me they're taking me. Shifting the Vegas odds aggressively. I guess we don't call them the Vegas odds anymore. I guess we just call them the sportsbook odds out. Yeah, that term's a little dated, I guess, now. But Levis in Kansas City for night 1. Mm-hmm. Back in the green room, waiting for that name to get called. You see the other quarterbacks that were in that mix that got picked during the first round. And Will Levis' name didn't get called Thursday.
I think it's crazy Anthony Richardson went as high as he did. He went number 4 to Indianapolis.
I think so as well.
I think it's...
But you know what? Indianapolis has not had success recently with quarterbacks.
Well, they've been on a quarterback carousel with Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers. Like, they keep bringing in these, I want to say, old time quarterbacks.
No, they have. Yeah. And they've all been way past their prime and in a team that just seemingly doesn't have it.
Right.
So Will Levis decides, I'm not staying in Kansas City for day 2.
Yeah, I didn't really like that move. It seemed kind of douchey to me.
I agree a little bit. Again,
it's like, dude, you're going to be probably one of the first couple picks in the second round.
You're there.
You're
like,
already there.
What are you doing? Throwing a pity party and saying, I want to get the fuck out of here. Right. Like, come on. You're there. And for him to, I just thought it was kind of funny because for him to then be the second pick in the second round, like he almost immediately got picked when the second round started. He probably barely got home before he got that call that said, hey.
No kidding. And the thing, though, with Will Levis, I think this could end up being a good thing for him because you don't have that bust aspect. If you're picked in the top 10 picks or or in the first round.
I think he still does.
But if you fall to the second round and you end up not doing well and you end up being cut after your first 3-4 years, I don't know if you would call him a bust at that point in time.
Oh, you definitely do, especially given, much like Indianapolis, what has Tennessee seen in recent quarterback production? They drafted Malik Willis last year. Fans have a bad taste in their mouth. They drafted Malik Willis last year, and they're already he was supposed to be the next guy when they drafted him.
What round did they draft him in?
It doesn't matter. They drafted it. Like, they spent draft capital on him with the intention. They didn't draft him to be a backup.
Right, but I wouldn't call him a bust though because he wasn't a top first round pick.
I'm not calling Malik Willis a bust. I'm saying if Levis fails, he absolutely will be a bust. It's almost a first in any other week or in any other season. That's the first pick in the second round. That's essentially a late first rounder.
I hear you.
And he was what, the 4th quarterback taken?
Yeah.
Hooker went after him.
Hooker was after him.
So he was the 4th quarterback taken in an NFL draft.
I'll give you this aspect. If Bryce Young, number 1 overall picked, ends up sucking, he's definitely a bust. You picked him first overall.
Oh, I agree.
He would be way more considered a bust than Will Levis would be.
Well, I'm not going to argue that. Yeah, obviously the first overall pick failing is different than the 33rd overall pick failing. No argument there. But from a standpoint as far as the Tennessee Titans fan base, what I would say is they're expecting a guy that's going to bring them back to relevance and make them competitive again. They have a lot of frustrations as a fan base, and it's not just surrounding the quarterback position, but something we've highlighted before, and I've talked about on this podcast before, that miserable A.J. Brown trade that they made.
Right.
Like, so stupid. And I can't help but continue to look back at that, as just one of the biggest fleecings in the last 5 years. I would argue that if Kadarius Toney continues to produce and look like he did for the Chiefs
and stays healthy,
the same thing would go to Brett Veach, and stays healthy. But it's just, the front office and the team needs some wins. Houston's in the same boat talking about Bryce Young, but they need some wins as far as publicity and far as success.
And getting back to Will Levis a bit, I don't know if he's the guy that's going to be able to do that. He doesn't seem like the type of guy that's going to be able to rally your teammates around him, rally the locker room around him. He seems kind of like a douchebag. He puts mayonnaise in his coffee, for God's sakes. Like, this guy...
He puts what?
Mayonnaise in his coffee.
Okay,
Have you not seen that?
I think I did, and I think I had erased it from my brain.
Yeah, and so he seems like the type of guy. He's going to go into the weight room. He's going to lift.
You know what I want to say to that, though?
What?
Patrick Mahomes puts ketchup on his steak, man.
That's not like putting mayonnaise in your coffee, and I will defend Patrick Mahomes to the end of my life.
I know you will. I'm just saying, if we're judging people on weird shit they do with food and drinks, Patrick Mahomes puts ketchup on his steak.
There are a lot of people that put ketchup on like everything. That's not weird. I don't know anyone else in the entire world who would put mayonnaise in their coffee.
It had to have started by accident, right?
You'd think?
Like, did he think
I thought it was creamer.
Yeah, he was hammered one morning.
Wait, Miracle Whip isn't creamer?
Does sound like a whipped cream, doesn't it?
Show you a whipped cream.
That just makes me think he's even more of an idiot than I already did. So I don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the guy to lead a team.
I think Will Levis goes one of two ways. I don't think he's the next Ryan Tannehill. I think he's either a shining star and is like a Pro Bowler for at least 4 to 5 seasons of his career.
Yeah.
Or he's an absolute bust. I don't think there's any in between, because I think he's one of those guys, like he showed during the time leading up to the combine. I mean, he turned it on. He got big. He got strong. He put in the work.
Oh, don't get me wrong. He can sling that ball.
Well, but sure. I'm talking about him showing that he could put in the work when he's determined to do something.
Yeah.
You're right. He can sling the ball. He's looked good since he was entering his rookie year at Kentucky. I'm talking about being able to turn it on as far as work mode to bring yourself to that next level. That's what guys need to have to be successful. And I'm not convinced he doesn't have it. I'm just uncertain if he did it because he knew he was going to get this payday and now he's going to be checked out because he made it to the league, or if this is now, all right, I'm turning around this franchise.
He needs to have that mindset, because you look at a lot of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. You talk about your Patrick Mahomes. You talk about
we know who all the best quarterbacks in the league are.
You talk about all those guys. Those guys have the character that they're not going out there and saying stupid shit at the press conferences. They're not going out there and just blasting things out on Twitter that are stupid, that are going to get a rise out of people. Like,
no, but there are different guys carry themselves with different swagger. At the end of the day, I'm not worried about him in a press conference. I'm talking about the work he's putting in on the field. And until we see him out there and until we see him doing it, we can speculate all we want as far as that goes.
We'll find out here in the next 3-ish years of who Will Levis is.
Exactly.
And I mean, speaking of people that were at the draft, Will Levis was at the draft, didn't get drafted until the second round. Rodger Goodell was also there. Rodger Goodell was getting booed up there on the stage, and he was making some picks and hugging some players.
I don't think he made the picks. I think he announced them.
Well, announcing the picks. My bad.
Or if he did make the picks, that further supports this week's Dick of the Week. This week's Dick of the Week is indeed the
Commissioner?
I was trying to come up with something witty to call him, but the commissioner of the NFL, Rodger Goodell. There has been a lot of speculation over several years with regard towards fans and players about their opinions of Rodger Goodell, mostly negative if you've ever watched an NFL draft. I want to bring something to light, and Mike's probably going to call me a non-homer on this or talking shit on the Chiefs, but I see the festivities this week, and I talked about the New Heights podcast doing their live edition at the Music Hall, having a number of guests, one of which was Patrick Mahomes, one of which was Tony Gonzalez, and one of which was Rodger Goodell. I think it's just absolutely absurd that the commissioner of a pro sports league is attending and going on stage and giving big hugs where Travis lifts him off the ground to make an appearance on these guys' podcasts. And these are the two guys playing for teams that played in the Super Bowl last year. Seeing Chris Jones lift him off the ground with a hug after they win the Super Bowl, seeing interactions he's had with different owners, with different players over the years. Let me be very clear. It is not just the Kansas City Chiefs that Rodger Goodell has had these interactions with. Those are the ones that brought it to mind this week, and those are the ones that spurred this stick of the week, but they are not the only ones that I take exception with. I don't think this is acceptable behavior as the commissioner of a professional sports league. We don't see Rob Manfred doing it in baseball. It's not to say that other sports commissioners aren't universally hated by everybody, because they are. People hate Gary Bettman. People hate Rob Manfred.
Adam Silver?
I think Adam Silver.
I don't think people hate Adam Silver.
I don't think people hate Adam Silver. I think he kind of looks like an alien, but I think that's unrelated. But I think Adam Silver pretty well runs under the radar. Which is weird because he's like 7 feet tall.
Well, NBA is a players' league, so he's basically just letting the players do what they want.
That's
so
true.
Therefore, they don't hate him.
That's true. But it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth seeing those types of interactions. I think there's a level of professionalism that you need to maintain, and I think likely up to this point, I don't think Paul Tagliabue did those types of interactions with players. I think he maintained his distance. I think it was understood that his office was one that you treated as an authority. It wasn't a, hey, we're boys, good to see you, dapping them up. And so I take exception with this, and I just don't think it's appropriate. Whether maybe it doesn't make him dickish, maybe it does, I don't know. But I'm calling him the dick of the week this week because I just think the conduct needs to be different.
I don't disagree. I think what happened early in Rodger Goodell's career, they started calling it the NFL No Fun League. He started putting all these things against celebrations. You can't do celebrations. Everyone started hating him. And so maybe he kind of changed his perspective on how he needs to be when he's out in the public. And he started to try and be more friendly with players, more friendly with coaches, more friendly with owners. And so that's where you see these kind of things come in. I did rewatch the Chris Jones and his interaction after the Super Bowl. That did strike me as super weird. It was a really weird embrace. They were whispering in each other's ear. Well, maybe trying to yell in each other's ears. It was probably really loud out there. But
either way, it's inappropriate conduct.
It was pretty weird. Like the commissioner should be the guy that goes up on the stage, gives the trophy out, shakes your hand, maybe gives like a quick,
half side hug. Yeah, thing. I'll humor that. Like when a trophy presentation, I'll absolutely humor that.
But that did strike me as super weird when I rewatched it today. Now, the Travis Kelce one, I doubt Rodger Goodell. I doubt Rodger Goodell is the only one that has appeared on someone's podcast. Now, that's not Rodger Goodell giving the hug. That was Travis Kelce running up and giving him the hug.
But he's putting himself in the position. He's there.
Correct. Yeah, and I don't know. I saw a bunch of New England Patriots fans bashing on the Kansas City Chiefs because of the whole Rodger Goodell stuff, saying it's rigged. Rodger Goodell loves the Chiefs, so blah, blah, blah.
I don't give a shit about what Patriots fans have to say about it.
It just kind of rubs me the wrong way that they think that Because Rodger Goodell has a good relationship with some Chiefs players. That's why we won the Super Bowl.
And again,
and that's not
just
the case.
Chiefs players. Those are the ones that spurred it this week because I saw those interactions and they came to mind.
Right.
But Rodger Goodell, Dick of the Week, clean it up, man. I don't want to see you hugging and grab assing and elbow rubbing, and I'm not going to say anything else.
Well, we had some other playoffs going on this week. NHL. Talk us through a little bit about the what's going on with that.
We're not talking through the NHL yet. You skipped your own segment.
I sure did. Holy cow.
And as much as I would love to skip your segment, I would be doing a disservice only because Travis Koppel sponsors it. If Travis Koppel wasn't sponsored, I would have breezed right through it and acted like you didn't say shit. That being said, Mike's Dad Jokes are sponsored by Travis Koppel, Jenkins Team, Platinum Realty. No pressure, just results. 913-961-7110. Travis specializes in helping the first responders community here in Kansas City buy and sell homes. If you're moving into the area, if you're moving out of the area, give Travis a call. If you know somebody that's doing either of those things, give Travis a call. He'd love to help you out. He'll talk a little sports with you. He'll talk a little cars with you. He'll talk a little life with you. But in the meantime, no pressure, just results. Travis Koppel, Jenkins Team, Platinum Realty.
What did the drummer call his twin daughters?
Twins. Sticks. Drumsticks.
I don't know.
Anna 1, Anna 2.
Dumb.
That was a good one. Did you guys hear about the kidnapping at school?
No, I did not.
Don't worry about it. He's fine. He just woke up.
That was decent.
It was better than the first one.
Did you hear about the scientist who was lab partners with a pot of boiling water? He had a very esteemed colleague.
I'm going to give the last two 4 out of 10.
And going back to ranking these.
I'm going to give the first one 1.5 out of 10.
Anna 1, Anna 2. That's what drummers do. Before
You
they
didn't
start
even
playing.
get 2 on the joke. You got 1.5. You split the difference between the 1 and the 2.
Okay.
1.5.
Well,
And now,
Adam, bring us into some NHL.
Mike's giddy for playoff talk, and so we're gonna get a little playoff talk in 2 different sports, starting with NHL. I did just check, so we saw 2 Game 7s last night. We saw, I would argue, the 2 favorites, one from each conference. We saw the reigning champion Colorado Avalanche going up against the Seattle Kraken, and the most improved team in the NHL without a doubt is the Seattle Kraken. Sure. And they're moving on to the second damn round. Congratulations. I am psyched. I am definitely pulling for the Kraken in the West. I want to see them win. They've got cool uniforms. They're an up-and-coming team. They got an upset in round 1 against a very tough Colorado Avalanche team. Congratulations to them. They have made so much improvement from the team they were last year.
And how many years have they been in now?
This is their second.
This is only their second year?
This is their second year in the league.
Yeah, congrats to the Kraken on that. That's crazy.
They even just before the playoffs started, they were hands down the most improved team. To then go in and knock off the reigning champions, they have, I think, a decent chance at coming out of the West now.
Nice.
We'll see. We've got the Stars moving on. We've got the Oilers moving on. We've got the Vegas Golden Knights moving on. So there are some good teams in there, but I do not count the Kraken out. Other Game 7 that we saw last night was the Panthers and the Bruins. The Bruins, best team all year in the NHL. Avalanche were the best team all year last year. They won the Stanley Cup. That's not happening for the Bruins this year.
We talked about the Bruins. We highlighted them a couple weeks ago. Yeah, they screwed it up. Big time.
The Panthers win in overtime and are moving on to the second round. We saw another, many hockey fans would argue, surprise outcome. The Toronto Maple Leafs knock off the Tampa Bay Lightning. This will be the first time in a long time that Tampa Bay hasn't seen the second round.
19 years of
this will be the first time in a long time, and in a much longer time, in 19 years, that Toronto has seen the second round. Congratulations to Ryan O'Reilly and the Toronto Maple Leafs. definitely pulling for them in the East. So I've already established the two teams I'm pulling for from this point forward. There are other teams I wouldn't mind seeing. We've got a Game 7 matchup going on right now, actually. We have the Devils and the Rangers. That game is currently... I just had it. It was 1-0 Devils when I looked late. It's 2-0 Devils. I don't like that. I would rather see the Rangers win.
Really?
Well, Tarasenko's there.
That's true, I guess.
But currently 2-0 Devils at the end of the second. So unless the Rangers get some offense going quick, their season's going to be over here in a matter of less than an hour.
I mean, I would say the two teams now that I'm pulling for, Florida Panthers and Seattle Kraken, because like those are teams that don't get talked about a lot. And so I'd be cool to kind of see those two teams face off in the Stanley Cup finals. And
additionally, we've got, so the other team that I don't think we covered at all is the Carolina Hurricanes. They are moving on as well. So you got the Maple Leafs, the Hurricanes, the Panthers, and the winner of this Rangers-Devils game, which appears to be potentially the Devils.
Nice.
So exciting matchups, and we're getting ready to finish. I think we're pretty well finished with the round one of the NBA playoffs as well.
We sure are. And there's only really one series that I want to highlight in this. We don't talk about NBA too often, so I don't want to get too far in depth with it. But the Miami Heat played the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks have by far been one of the best teams in the NBA this entire season. They were the pick at the beginning of the season to win the NBA Finals, and they were the number one seed in the East going into the playoffs this year. And Giannis is their best player, and Giannis is potentially Giannis, the best player in the NBA right now. But Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler knocked them off in 5 games. They don't even take it to a 6th or 7th game. Knock them off in 5 games. Miami Heat win 4-1 in that series.
My boy Lance is pumped. You know Lance.
I do know Lance.
Lance is a Miami Heat fan, and he is jazzed about this. And they already won game 1 of their next series.
They did.
They're rolling on.
They beat the Knicks. Yeah, they already beat the Knicks. So, but one thing I wanted to bring up was Giannis. I keep saying Giannis. That's the American coming out of me. But Giannis had a very interesting quote after they lost to the Miami Heat. A reporter asked him, is this season a failure? And here, I'll just read you the quote and then we can react to it. But Giannis said, it's not a failure. It's steps to success. There's always steps to it. Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 championships. The other 9 years, was he a failure? That's what you're telling me? It's a wrong question. There's no failure in sports. There's good days, bad days. Some days you're able to be successful. Some days you're not. Some days it's your turn. Some days it's not your turn. And that's what sports is about. You don't always win. Sometimes other people win. And this year, somebody else is going to win. Simple as that. While that's a very political and good answer, I hate it.
The Ricky Bobby in you is coming out.
The Ricky Bobby in me is coming out. I hate it because if you ain't first, you're last. And do you think Michael Jordan would not come back and say those 9 years that they didn't win were not failures? Michael Jordan was going out there to win a championship every single year. And if he didn't win one, I think he would call that a failure.
I would agree with you. I think he probably would. I think Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant is another name that comes to mind to me. I'm curious what LeBron would say to that. But I agree with you. But to the same point, I am truly an advocate for failure being something that is absolutely a learning tool. You're not, to his point, Michael did win championships in 40% of the seasons he played.
Right.
If you think he didn't learn from those other 60% and change his game and adapt and grow as a player, you're dead wrong.
I agree with that, but I will say it's not. Giannis could have called this season a failure, and it's not saying that the team was a failure or saying that he was a failure. It's saying that we didn't meet our expectations this year, aka we failed at what our goals were. That is technically a failure in this regard. And yes, but he could still also have come back and said, This season was a failure for us. We were supposed to win. We wanted to win. Our goal was to win. But we will take this experience and we will learn for next year and we will go forward with it.
I think that was the message he was conveying. I think there are certain talking points in it that maybe are being I think maybe there are particular things he said that could be interpreted multiple ways. And I see what you're saying. I think it's refreshing because all you ever hear guys with the mentality of is, yeah, obviously we wanted to win. Yeah, obviously we feel we came up short. I hear that every time somebody loses. So hearing somebody be a little bit real with it from a different standpoint and just have a little bit of a different take, I think it's refreshing. I think we know Giannis is an MVP. I mean, he is truly a Hall of Fame talent. So I don't think we can question his dedication or his drive necessarily. I mean, he's on a small market team. He has stayed on a small market team when you know the New York teams have called, the Chicago teams have called, the LA teams have called him.
Yeah, he wants to be in Milwaukee. He wants to win for Milwaukee.
So I respect his perspective due to that.
I would say I feel like he's a little soft. I know he's got all the talent in the world. I think he's a little soft. And the reason I say that is because he wasn't even guarding Jimmy Butler. He was and I think there was some quotes from him saying that, well, I was letting my coach the game. He didn't want me on Jimmy Butler. No, you're the best player on that damn court. You get out there, you guard the other team's best player.
You do what your coach says.
You think Michael Jordan would come off the court and just listen to whatever his coach said?
Nobody else is Mike, but no.
I'm guarding this best guy. Kobe Bryant, same thing. I'm the best guy on this court. I'm guarding their best guy. You tell your coach that.
How big is Giannis?
Giannis is like 6'10"-ish.
He's bigger than either of those guys were. So his mobility to guard somebody that's much more mobile than him, I think that's tough to hold the expectation that he's going to guard the shooters on every team.
I think he could have guarded Jimmy Butler. I think he could have been able to guard Jimmy Butler.
Maybe he could have.
Better than whoever else was guarding him, because Jimmy Butler put 56 points up in game 4 and 42 points up in game 5. You cut that down by 10 points in each game, we could be talking about Milwaukee moving on right now.
We could. No,
don't get me wrong. Giannis is a class act, and that's what he's being right here. That's what he's being. But sometimes you got to have that dog in it, and you got to go off to the sideline and be like, Coach, what we're doing is not working. Put me on Jimmy.
Well, and maybe he is behind closed doors. Maybe his goal from the interview was to not feel like he was throwing his coach under the bus, teammates, whomever under the bus. I gotcha. Maybe. Again, I saw the interview, but I don't know the backstory. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but to your point, I get what you're saying. You want people that are ready to roll.
Yeah, especially in playoff time.
And speaking of ready to roll, speaking of diving right in, we're gonna get in there. It's time for Matt's Hostile Takeover, and diving right in.
Oh.
It was a pool, man.
Damn,
Come
man.
on, I was ready.
We're going to be diving into Jerry Downs pools today. So Matt's Hostile Takeover is sponsored by Extreme Pool Renovation and Construction by Jerry Downs. Jerry Downs is a master craftsman. He and his team have been renovating and creating unique pool designs in the Midwest for many years. The attention to detail and the level of customer service are second to none. Jerry and his team will come through for you like no one else. Ask Jerry about the other services he can offer too. Extreme Pool Renovation and Construction. When good enough is not good enough. Feel free to give him a call at 816-738-3118 or reach out with an email, extremepoolsbyjerry@yahoo.com.
Thanks, Mike, with a little prodding from Adam.
You're welcome.
I just got a grab bag of a few recent events, so I'm just going to roll into them. Did you guys see a couple weeks ago, Disneyland, California? They have this show kind of at the end of the night called Fantasmic. It's kind of like the Disney World equivalent, the like fireworks show and stuff like that. But it's like this play and there's like animated figures and stuff. Well, one scene they have a Mickey Mouse in his wizard outfit kind of battling this 45-foot dragon.
Bowser?
No Bowser. This is
That's
Disney.
Different.
Oh.
Yeah. Mario's going Universal Studios route. But fire-breathing dragon, 45 feet tall. What could go wrong?
It catches on fire.
It absolutely caught on fire a couple weeks ago, and just about every person in that like 2,000 person crowd whipped out their phones, and you can watch this dragon burn to the ground in every angle in HD.
Was there a human inside of it?
No, it's all mechanical. No one's injured as far as I know. But hilarious nonetheless. The show did not go on, I do believe.
But I thought the show must go on.
It did not. But everyone says Mickey obviously won that battle. But next one up, Japan, a private company in Japan named iSpace Incorporated, kind of like an iPad, but in space, iSpace.
Okay.
They made an attempt at landing a lunar rover on the moon.
Did it blow up too?
Yeah, it sure did. So there has been 0 cases. This is, I think, the 3rd instance of a private company trying to land on the moon. All 3 have failed. Their last instrument readings was that they were out of fuel and entering free fall towards the moon.
Smells like sabotage.
I don't know. The best guess is that their altitude measurement was off.
I'm a pot stirrer, Matthew. It's sabotage.
Might have been, but U.S., China, and Russia have all landed on the moon with public funding. But it's obviously a pretty hard problem. That okay, Adam, that was a great face.
Well, because Elon can't do it either, right?
Well, he hasn't tried yet, but that would be a private company if they did try.
I wasn't sure if you saw that when I was doing it.
Yeah, I look up every once in a while. I don't turn around to look at you. I look up at the monitor. But last one I got is Polly wants a video chat. So
Polly want a cracker?
Yeah, exactly. Parrots live in cages. A lot of them live for a really long time. And even though they're isolated, they are kind of social creatures. And so a joint research study between Northern University, MIT, and the University of Glasgow determined that if you teach parrots how to use an iPad to make video calls to other parrots, they will in fact do it, and they do in fact enjoy doing it.
No kidding.
Yeah, so they taught these birds to ring a bell, and they'd bring them an iPad, and then a little game of Tinder would occur where they would show 2 photos of 2 birds, and they got to pick.
They got to pick which birds they're talking to?
Which bird they'd give a little late night video call to.
Tweet, motherfucker.
But, the researchers thought they would see some amount of aggression between these calls, but almost all of them were friendly, birds imitating, singing to each other.
Birds just trying to get down.
Exactly. And so...
probably trying to get laid.
Probably, as most motivations in nature. Not excluding Adam there as he begins his ritual dance there.
Tweet.
Oh, boy.
Well, that's all I got for you guys.
That was great. Loved it.
And with that, we will once again bid you adieu for another week. We look forward to continuing to dive into these playoff scenarios here next week. And I think Mikey's going to get us some golf picks again here for this upcoming week.
How'd last week go?
Not
hot. Yeah, he's back to ground zero for sure.
Hostler was close. I think he tied for like 10th, so he was up there. But Clark and Gary Woodland did not do well.
And that's why we remind you.
There's always next year.
Okay, who said something about having a little American come out of them?
Oh, that was definitely Mike. Yeah, that was definitely Mike.